Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Varsity Voices podcast, where we bring you the inside scoop on Chicago Catholic League football and important information on high school football in Illinois. Make sure you follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and on X at varsity_voices1, Instagram at _varsity voices, and Facebook at the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League Football. You can also email us with any comments or questions you might have at varsityvoices312 at gmail.com. I'm Joe Frevaletti, one of your hosts, and here with me is your other host, Dan Frevaletti. And Dan, today we have another special episode of From the Coach's Office, and this time we had a chance to catch up with the new head coach for Marmion Academy, Adam Guerra. So, we did the episode on Harold Blackman just a couple of days ago. Another new coach. Both of these are in the same division, right?
Yeah, they are both in the blue division. I can't remember now.
Red?
Oh, no, not the blue. The red. Excuse me. The
Yeah.
red division. Yeah. So yeah, that division, as I think I mentioned in the last one, that's got the newest coaches. So you've got Coach Blackman in his first year, Coach Guerra in his first year. You've got Coach Lopez going into his
Third year, maybe?
Fourth year. Yeah, third year. And then who am I missing?
Is DePaul in that division? No.
Leo,
right.
Coach Stevens. Yeah, so he's in his second year. So yeah, a lot of new coaches in this one, which I think makes it a little more interesting. One of the things about playing similar teams every year is that you get to know them a little bit. You know their tendencies, and even if you're watching on film, these guys all share film. It's one thing to watch film; it's another thing to go against it. So. I think that will add a level of interest to that division.
Yeah, the other thing it adds, I think, after now we've had a chance to talk to Coach Blackman, this interview with Coach Guerra is it adds a bit of energy too, right? You've got two new coaches coming in, really ready to get after it, right? Within the league and within their division. So I think that's going to make for some interesting games this year with some of these new coaches and the energy that they're bringing.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't think I asked Coach Guerra about this, but they've got some drives. Obviously, they'll host some of those games, but all three division members are a healthy way from Aurora. So it is. That's always something to take into consideration when you're thinking about kids leaving school and getting on a bus and fighting traffic. So going both ways, that's never easy, especially for the lower level games that happen before the varsity game. Always a challenge, just a little logistical thing there about the divisions. But he was great, just like all the coaches. Again, I found some common threads that I'm hearing. It'll be interesting if I hear that all the way through as we try to get most, if not all, the coaches for an interview. But yeah, he's excited about the proposition of coaching this team, and he was happy with kind of where the program was at when he came in. They struggled last year, but I think they have a lot of good players returning. And you'll hear that it talks. He was pleased with their progress in the weight room. He was pleased with it when he showed up. He was pleased with where they were at. He was concerned it was going to be a tough situation. He's big into the strength and conditioning. Really, really hits that side of the summer hard, and the off season. Is a big believer in that as a pillar of the program, because one thing I'm hearing these coaches say, Joe, is that strength and conditioning now, everyone is in the weight room all the time, right? All off season, all these sports have gone, to some sort of year-round training, and that just gets you to par. That just gets you even with everyone else. So it's
right.
How much you do, And for these new coaches trying to find the balance between on the field, in the weight room, and conditioning, that's always interesting to hear what they feel like is more important. And I think Coach Guerra touches on that during the interview.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things for me with Coach Blackman and now with Coach Guerra, which everybody will hear, is this is the first year. So I think we asked a question about what does that mean? When you're going into summer practices, getting ready, installing your offense, installing your defense. Do you have all that in place? And it's interesting because they don't have a previous year playbook they can, so to speak, roll out for a year or two, right? So it's not that they're winging it, but in some cases they've got to wing it, right? You've got to put things in place on the fly, and you've got to get your kids to not only buy into it, but also get used to a different process or different practice plans, all those kinds of things. So, it's all new.
Yeah, it's got to be hard. There's only so much time in the day. There's only so many days on the calendar. You're limited when you can meet. A lot of these schools, have a significant amount of coaches that are not teachers. So working their schedules out for the summer, I think in some of these places they end up where, they have a practice plan and 3 coaches and 16 players aren't there for that day for whatever reason. So your plan is blown up, and that's a challenge. And they're all facing the same ones with travel sports, vacations, work schedules, all things that are legitimate. There's really no downside. I always like to think that, I had a coach tell me that, you should always be preparing for the season that comes next. His philosophy with the kids. And it was like, hey, you just finished the baseball season. High school baseball is not until next spring. Those days are gone. That is gone. There's a lot of specialization. One of these days, Joe, I want to get on the podcast someone who can talk about that. Maybe a scout, someone who does one of the 56 White Sox podcasts that's out there. Guys that I listen to are Cub podcasts that will talk about maybe what scouts look for. And I think they'll tell us it's the opposite of what kids are doing. That they want well-rounded athletes. They like, they always mention, you'll hear the draft is going on now as we record this, but you'll hear they make a point of saying 3-sport athlete, multi-sport athlete. And that is a big deal. And it seems as if they're having a hard time getting that message across, or people aren't believing it. That they have to specialize.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is, as you and I both know, and being part of travel programs coming up with our kids, we want those kids there, right? For that baseball, for that softball game. It's like, hey, we're scheduling this. You expect to play in 12 tournaments throughout the summer. So we're giving you 12 tournaments, and now you're going to have to be there. So, yeah, but I've seen the same thing that you just mentioned, and I've seen it mostly on maybe some posts on Twitter or X and other places, but it's actually posts from college coaches saying that exact thing, that I'm looking for well-rounded individuals and athletes, not somebody that's just played football or just played baseball, or play baseball and then fit football in. That's not what they're looking for anymore. I think that's changing.
Yeah, and it's the other thing that comes up, and I'll put on my fake doctor's smock, for a minute, but
is it long enough? Opens in the front or back?
Front. Yeah. Oh yeah, front, white, crisp white. Yeah. Yep. It's stenciled in my name. But you know, and we used to see it in softball. So, for the listeners, Joe and I both had daughters that played softball, and you start to see, we both, I think, had players with, uh, I think they call it repetitive motion injuries, and I'm thinking of one player in particular that ended up getting a stress fracture in her ankle from taking so many swings and that step, that front step, lead step, and ankle started to hurt, shin splints, boom, stress fracture. The doctor
Yeah.
said you got to do something else, and so I believe that. I think I think the days when you went from one sport to another, it probably was a good thing. Um, but I think there's a lot of pressures out there. I think everyone goes into it with the best intentions from a parent perspective. And they feel that pressure. That's so and so's at practice. They're at practice. What are you
Right.
doing? Well, I'm going to cross country or whatever it might be. Well, we need you here. So that's a challenge for parents, for players, and for the coaches in the summertime that have to practice, especially in the summer. They really, really struggle with it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think you'll agree we had a good interview with Coach Guerra. Let's get to that. I think it's probably 15 to 20 minutes, somewhere in that range. But I think people will find that Coach Guerra is, he's kind of a high energy individual. He's got things in place, and he knows exactly what he wants to do with this program. So he's got some interesting things to talk about or to say in the interview. So let's get to it.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to the Varsity Voices. We are having a special From the Coach's Office edition today. Today we have the head coach, brand new head coach for Marmion Academy, Adam Guerra, with us. Coach, thanks for being here.
Of course, excited to be on the show.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before, but having just started at Marmion, obviously you're familiar with the conference. You've coached in the conference before, but boy, you've been on the job 2 to 3 months. What is the scramble like to get ready for a summer practice schedule?
I mean, like you said, it's a scramble. I mean, you've got you kind of get to know the kids a little bit in off-season weights, and you kind of see what athletes you have and maybe what kind of positions these guys can play, and then you kind of decide what you want to install first off of those hunches, and then you roll with it, and then which we really did for June. And now, though, we've seen these kids for a couple of weeks, and we've got a much better sense of who can do what. And so we're starting to ramp up install on offense and defense and get guys in the best positions to be successful. But, it's a scramble. I mean, sometimes you get those preseason checklists where you have everything done at a certain time. And in that first year, it's like a whole 5-month checklist. Some things might not get handled until August, other things get, you can check off right away, but you're just figuring it out.
Yeah. So, Coach, I know you're new there at Marmion, first year in that, but what was attractive to you about the job at Marmion?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, first of all, it has a great reputation as just an academic institution, and being a Catholic educator, that's important to me. Number one, number two, it's in the suburbs. I live in the suburbs, so it's not, I'd love to say it's super close, but it's not, but it's close enough, and sometimes you don't want to spend your whole life on the expressway. But then really for me, and ultimately it's an all boys Catholic school, and I firmly believe in that educational model. I went to an all boys Catholic school. It was a tremendously formative experience for myself. That's where I began teaching and coaching. I've been lucky enough to work at another all-boys Catholic school, and then I'm really excited to be at Marmion. I think that model is something that can give young men the opportunity to grow and be successful. And ultimately, we do want to win football games, but the number one, what I hope, many years from now, it's more on my record's not going to be on my tombstone. It's going to be the impact you have on your own children and the children of others, and that's I think that. For me, I just firmly believe that type of institution is a great way to have that impact.
Yeah, great.
That's a great answer, and it is all about that. I feel like I'm hearing that consistently in my discussions with the coaches. You had mentioned off season and weights, and I always wonder. It used to be back in the day where summer was kind of dedicated to weights, conditioning, maybe a couple 7-on-7s. Reading some of your bio, I know that you are a big weight room and summer conditioning person. What do you think? How do you kind of divide your time, or how important is doing the weights and conditioning versus X's and O's during the summer?
That's a great question, Dan. I could talk for a long time about this. I have a lot of theories on this. So
yeah,
I really think about, you got a backwards plan. So you look at week one. What do you want to look like week one? And then you start moving backwards through your August. And the bottom line is now with whether, all the states across the country really have limited what you're allowed to do in those preseason August practices. I don't feel like I'm that old, but when I was in high school, we were doing 2-a-days and we were really doing 3-a-days. School started later, so we had 2 uninterrupted weeks of football before the classes ever resumed. And now you look around, especially in Illinois and a lot of other states, you're down to 1 a day for several days, and then you get to go 2 every other day. But that oftentimes conflicts with the start of school, which is starting earlier and earlier. So really, like, that August is, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like in-season practice. You're not going to get much more than you would during a regular season week, okay? So you got to back up to summer now. So summer is really where those football skills, fundamentals, and playbook install have to come in. You really are hoping, I am hoping that, your base plays offensively and defensively, your base techniques offensively and defensively are all installed in summer. And so it's crucial. But then, okay, so now you got a backwards plan. What does that mean? It means that, January through May is your clutch strength training time. I'm also a big believer in flexibility and core strength, so you've really got to build those up January through May. Transitioning, taking over a new job, I really didn't get into the weight room until March, so we were a little truncated, but the boys did a good job, and, it was new for them, and it was, but they've been doing a good job. So, that being said, in summer, what it looks like is, June was a little bit more. I say there's 3 parts to summer. There's strength, there's conditioning, and there's football. So June was a little bit more strength, conditioning, a little less football. Now we're moving into where it's more football, a little less strength, and then, the way you practice, hopefully, if you're practicing fast and you're moving with intention, that'll take care of the conditioning piece.
Sure.
Yeah, you mentioned what you want to look like in week one and kind of working backwards from there, Coach. So in your mind, what do you want to look like in week one this year?
Yeah, I think, I've always believed in being, physically dominant at the line of scrimmage. So putting making sure you've got your offensive and defensive linemen, linebackers, fullbacks, tight ends ready to go. And then week one, offensively, I think it's about getting your best playmakers the ball in a couple of different ways. Because you really don't, you can have film from your early opponents from last year, but, they're going to change, you're going to change. So I think it's really more about making sure you can get those best playmakers the ball. And then defensively, I think it's being sound against everything. It might not be the best defense for what the early season opponents are going to bring out, but you want to at least, have a general answer to spread pass, spread run, power run, option. You want to, so you're not totally surprised. Like I said, it won't be the best necessarily, but you can still, get lined up and make the tackle, which is ultimately the goal on defense.
Right. Okay.
And Coach, you said you mentioned getting the football to your playmakers and just kind of reviewing, who's back from last year. I kind of looked at the all conference lists, and you had Joey Favia, and excuse me if I'm going to pronounce these names wrong. I'll eventually get them right. But Michael Roche, Brian Scales, and you mentioned Gavin Burt. They all were, kind of listed as ball carriers in some way, shape, or form. I know you said you love to run the football. Are those the guys that you want to have with the football in their hands?
Yeah, absolutely. Those 3 are for sure the top. We have some other guys that have really improved over the course of spring and summer. We have a solid senior receiver. And Jack Young is doing a great job. I'm excited for him. And then we took in one of the more interesting position switches maybe I've ever had, we took our center, who's a hell of an athlete, 6'5", 260 pounds, and we moved him to tight end. And so that's Mateusz Nietzsche. And we, so moving him over there, he's going to be a huge piece of our run game, but he's also he's a state wrestler, so he's a great athlete, and so we want to get him the opportunity to carry the ball and hopefully run some guys over as well.
Wow, that is an interesting position move. That's you see the linebacker to D line, but you don't see center to tight end very often.
No, I think we have some solid interior linemen that kind of look like me in the 5'10", 5'11", sawed off high school lineman versions,
right,
and Mateusz was like this huge Empire State Building in the middle, and so I thought that he, as the athlete he is, he could do some good stuff for us.
Great.
Yeah, so Coach, challenging conference, right? Or challenging league in the Chicago Catholic League. You've been around a little bit, right? You were at St. Pat's, now you're at Marmion. What do you find is one of the most challenging aspects of playing in the Chicago Catholic League?
Just the quality of players and coaching, week to week. I mean, even, I don't think the record of any given team is actually an indicator of how good they are. One year we had 4 losses and it was to 4 state champs, so that's a tough deal right there. And so I think that's probably it. So you have to be ready to go every week. There's great coaching like I said, if you have a down week, you're the coach on that other side is really, he's done the work and he's gotten his team prepped. So they're going to take advantage of you not being ready. One other thing I think that's a little bit unique to the Catholic League, how they kind of rotate the divisions and all of that. Maybe the blue guys kind of stay the same opponents consistently, but everyone else, every 2 years you kind of have a different slate. And I think that can be, that can be a little, that's unique. Sometimes it can, work in your favor where maybe you catch some teams that aren't as strong as they normally are, but it can also, kind of change those epic battles of year in and year out. You're playing the same guys, and your freshmen played them as freshmen, and so you kind of lose that sometimes, and so I think that's unique. I don't know if that's good or bad. I just think that's unique.
Yeah, there is a lot of discussion about that, and we talked about schedules early on, and seeing that some teams had to schedule their traditional rivalries as non-conference games within the conference because of how the divisions lined up. So that's one thing you could argue good or bad in favor of against, with the Catholic League and how it operates. But
I personally think that stinks. There's a reason the SEC only plays 8 games in their conference because they don't want each other to beat each other up. And it's like we're kind of, forcing ourselves to sometimes play more games within our Catholic conference. And I just, I think that it would be nice if we could figure out some way that there's a lot of really quality Catholic football teams that don't make the playoffs, and it would be, and I know that everyone worries about this, but that's whenever I get outside my little mini bubble of my own team, that's one thing I wish that you could, look at Naz last year, 4-5, squeaks in and wins it, and I think there'd be more of that if we could figure some ways around that.
Yeah, I think I'll find that consistently, and if I talk to the 4 and 5 teams from last year, they'll kind of feel the same way.
Yeah.
So you've been in the Catholic League before, obviously. It's a different division. Are there any fields that you haven't been to that you're looking forward to going to, or have you been to them all?
Oh, that's a good one. I haven't played a game at IC Prep's field.
Okay.
I've been there, but I haven't played a game there. That looks like a cool venue.
Yeah.
I've been to Marist. It's a great venue. Tough
venue
to play at.
Yep.
Easily one of the best. I would say, a little bit of IC. I think that, the ones that I haven't been to that, you'd want to go play at are, Mount Carmel. I don't really want to go play at, but, that are on that back in the day before Huddle, you'd go scout when you got the chance and you'd see these things, and or maybe as a freshman or a sophomore coach, you would have been, to scout for the varsity. And now, all the young guys, they don't know how good they have it with just all the film popping up on their screen on Saturday morning, as opposed to have gotten stuck, parking 5 blocks away because you didn't get over there fast enough, and you've got an angry dad blocking the camera view in front of you. I mean, those days are long gone, but it also means you don't get to see as many of the fields as you used to.
Right.
Yeah. Any other overall program improvements that Marmion and you are taking a look at, Coach, as far as, I don't know, maybe your field or other types of things where you're just trying to develop the program a little bit more?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so Marmion just has a new field, new track, stadium's amazing. I mean, I think the school's done an amazing job that way. We have a beautiful field house. It's the first time I've ever had something like that, which I haven't even completely figured out how to take advantage of that yet. But I mean, it's on my list of things to accomplish. Our weight room's got what we need in it. Obviously, I don't think there's any football coach in the country that wouldn't say they wanted a bigger weight room. I mean, with every guy having their own rack, I mean, that's what we all want. So I don't know if that's like a unique thing. No, I mean, I think Marmion is in a great spot. It's a new coach. Coach Thorpe did an amazing job for 17 years. Obviously, for having a change after 17 years, there's some things that you can say, modernize, update, kind of bring together a little bit more. I think that those are the things. Try to get, make sure that the off season, summer season kind of all run together. Getting the boys to, take more advantage of the technology that's available to them to get better as football players. I think that's a big piece that we're working on right now. And then I think everybody's kind of, in the Catholic League, we're all looking at new uniforms all the time. I don't even, maybe 10 years ago that was kind of a cool thing to think about doing, but now it's just part of the course to be in the Catholic League and make sure you're giving your athletes and their families, the best opportunities and the best gear. So that's, once again, I kind of just keep saying that's part of the course.
Yeah. So is there anything that's kind of surprised you? I know you've only been there a little bit, but anything that surprised you in a positive way, maybe something you didn't quite expect, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty big and strong right off the bat. That was very impressive. Couple first days in the weight room. I'm lucky I'm inheriting a team with some big, strong kids, and I think that's always good. Sometimes, athletes are kind of athletes no matter what they're doing in the weight room, but getting the opportunity to have guys who are already strong and physical. A lot of wrestlers, a lot of multi-sport athletes. Those are all good things that create strong football teams and strong football players.
Yeah, great.
That's good. Well, you mentioned about the facilities, and last question I have, Coach, is it's really important to me. Now, I'm an Aurora resident, so I want to know: does Marmion, do they still have the Christmas tree farm?
Yes,
right.
Behind us, yeah. Now, obviously, I wasn't around for Christmas, so I'm not 100% sure what but they're there.
Okay. I've used that, so that's my kids are grown, but that was a common thing for us at Christmas to head to Marmion and negotiate with the priests there to cut down some trees. So it's good to know that while the improvement in facilities is football, they still have a place for the Christmas tree farm.
Yeah, I mean, you're making me concerned now. I'm not actually 100% sure that it's. I mean, they're there. I don't know if people are going back there cutting them down or anything, but I'm gonna go wander around today and figure out the answer to that one.
All right, thanks. I don't know, Joe, if you have anything else.
Yeah, just one last question from me too, Coach. So a year from now, if we're sitting down again for another interview, what do you hope we're talking about 1 year from now as far as your program and what's happened over the last year?
Oh, that's a great one. I hope we're talking about a long playoff run. I think that's within our grasp, and we've got to go out and take it. It's certainly not going to be handed to us, but I do think that's within this team's ability, and I'm excited for that. I also hope we're talking about a great run by our freshman team, and the programs. We're on the upswing right now, and I hope that next year it's even more exciting for if we can top what we did in this first year that I'm the head coach.
Great. Okay.
Coach, well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and you're very open and honest with us. We will go ahead and give you back the rest of your day, but we appreciate your support of the Varsity Voices and from the Coach's Office edition. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys. I love this. This is awesome. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that was Coach Guerra. One of the things, my takeaway from that, or a couple of takeaways from the interview with him, Dan, is he's got a real attention to the details in his program. He not only has the big picture, but he can point out the specific details as far as the things that he thinks are important and that they've got to be working on. So I found that interesting.
Yeah, and I think if you kind of listen to the thing, I was really interested to hear him say that when he showed up, the guys were big and strong. I think I mentioned that before. There was more than he thought. That's usually something that I think lacks. Maybe it wanes as coaches who've been there for a long time. That strength and conditioning part. I think that as a new coach, you probably could go in expecting the worst. From a strength size, you can't really control that before you get there. And I think it was for him to say we've got a lot of guys who are, bigger and stronger than he thought they might be when he showed up. And I know you've watched a little film. I have not seen as much film on Marmion. I know you saw some players jump off the film that they had and you were excited about. And I think they're going to make it really interesting in that division. I think that
I do too. Yeah.
Our conversation may have swayed where I'm going with my preseason pick, so I'll save it for now. But these conversations definitely have an influence on me.
Yeah, my sense is that they are definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with, right? Now, I haven't seen them play, right? I have watched a little bit of film of some of the returning players, some of their top returning players who look really good to me. So if they've improved from last year to this year, and maybe some of the changes that he's making in personnel positions, that kind of thing, I have a feeling they might surprise some people this year and really be a team to be reckoned with.
It'll be interesting to see. He was really honest about what his expectations were early on. He's like, hey, I'm going to get the offense in. Defense, we're going to probably not be as complex as we might be in week 6, but I know defensively it's about flying to the football but I'm interested to see what they'll do early on with some of these teams. The one thing that you can say, and I think I've asked a couple of coaches about this, the change in the game over the last 10 years, the coaching has gotten better. It's more sophisticated. Everything that goes to college trickles down. So you've got some pretty complex offenses out there, and you've got to be able to manage that. So it is it'll be interesting to see how they do early on defensively. I'll be watching that based on our discussion.
Yeah. All right. So another good interview with another new coach within the Chicago Catholic League. So we've got more of those coming up in the next couple of weeks with some of the other coaches. That's it for this special episode of From the Coach's Office. Thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in for our next episode where we will bring you another From the Coach's Office episode with an interview with Marmion Catholic head coach Nick Lopez. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and on X at varsity_voices1 or at Instagram at _varsity_voices and Facebook at the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League Football. You can also email us any questions, comments at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and make sure you tune in for our next episode.